let's get into the quickie reviews of some of the stuff that I have watched lately. Let's start with Late Night with the Devil. Directed by Cameron and Colin Kearney, Late Night with the Devil is the story of Jack Delroy, the host of a late night show in 1977 that has fought for that sweet #1 spot in ratings for years. In a desperate attempt to raise his numbers, Jack Delroy decides to bring the occult into his show and things go incredibly south. Late Night with the Devil is a movie that I found so entertaining, especially once I realized this is a found footage movie. It is as if you are watching a late night show and instead of watching a movie, you are one of the confused spectators at home watching what's happening live at home. Nowadays, true crime documentaries are very trendy, so making a movie as if you are watching something like that was a lot of fun. And of course, something great and subtle was the story. What happens during the broadcasting was not just a consequence of Jack Delroy pushing things further and further during the show, but it's a consequence of the things he had done previous to that. From the start of the movie, when we as an audience get a quick recap of who Jack Delroy is and his trajectory in the TV world, we also get clues that he might have been so obsessed with that #1 spot that he made a deal with the devil, which led to his wife perishing upon a tragic disease. And now what he did has not only come back to haunt him, but to entirely take him down. You know, he made a deal with the devil to be incredibly famous, and well, now he will be as the host of that late night show where people were killed by the demon, and since he killed the girl, he now will go to jail. He got fame, not just like he expected. Another thing that I find worth mentioning about this movie is the special effects. The movie is set in 1977 and the special effects seems like practical effects from the 70s, and I love the compromise to the aesthetic. The set production of the movie is amazing, really creating that atmosphere and style from the 70s, but also having the special effects being like something you would see in a movie during that era was a great detail. It gets to a point in this movie where things get bloody, so it was really nice to see their take in what is a gory climax. Overall, I think Late Night with the Devil is a great horror movie. However, that's not something that I would say to a general audience. The thing is, when you say a horror movie is great, a lot of people think that they will be clutching to their seat or at least their hands will get sweaty with fear. But that's not the case here. This is a very slow burn movie. It seems like too little is happening till almost the end of the movie. This is a very slow burn movie. It seems like too little is happening till almost the end of the movie when even the format seems to change from film to digital and aspect ratio is in HD. So I understand why this movie can be disappointing to a lot of people. This is not a scary movie, it's a horror movie, and that's a very important difference. In my own personal opinion, I give Late Night with the Devil an 8 out of 10. Now, let's go into Windbreaker. Windbreaker is an anime about Haruka Sakura, a guy who loves to fight so much he enters a high school where fighting is the #1 subject. Obviously, there's much more that goes into this. The town where Sakura arrives is called Windbreaker, like the title, and the school Sakura goes to is called Furin. And it is quickly revealed into the story that Furin has taken it into their own hands to protect the town since the government has forgotten it and its people. Obviously, this school, Furin, is not about fighting but about protecting, and that changes everything. What I can say about Windbreaker is that it is entertaining, but it can be cheesy and a little bit repetitive. With a story, especially on shonen shows, it is important to establish the dynamic in your main group, but I think this show overdid it. But let me explain. Sakura is someone who has always been rejected because of the way that he looks and because of his strength, and so he has always been alone. So when he comes to Windbreaker and he sees that the people are supporting him beating the shit out of a criminal group, he is understandably taken aback. But for example, we're in episode 1 and Kotoha, the girl Sakura saves from the criminal group I just mentioned, is immediately like, "I see you have always been alone, Sakura, but you can win if you are alone." She's able to read Sakura within 10 minutes, and after that, this issue becomes a constant dynamic in the show. Every time someone gives Sakura a compliment, he gets flustered and screams, claiming that he's not a good guy, he just likes to fight. And then someone else goes, "Oh my god, Sakura is embarrassed to be called a good guy." And this type of interaction happens at least twice. in an episode. And let me tell you that one episode is 20 minutes. So in one episode, you can see this happen every 5 minutes. Quite literally. At this point, it's incredibly obvious Sakura's character development will be that he will learn to fight for others and accept his role as a good guy. So I just wish they weren't stating this all of the time and allow the viewers to see. You know, show, don't tell. Another thing is Nirei. He is profiled to be Sakura's right hand. He is the guy who can't really fight but knows it all about other fighters, so he's very useful inside the group. But he's also a coward and he's screaming and panicking almost every occasion something remotely violent happens. But on the good side, the little tournament they had during the second half of the season was really great. I think it was here where we got to see the philosophy of the story through the fight of Umemiya against Choji. Umemiya is basically the top dog of Fury, meaning he is the strongest guy in the school, the strongest guy in Windbreaker. So obviously, since this is the first time that we see Umemiya in a fight, we don't get to see all of his abilities. I think that we really do not get to see any of his abilities. We just saw Umemiya take the punches like a champ and teach Choji a lesson. Your punches lack strength when there's nothing behind them. Basically, your punches are weak if you don't have anything to fight for. In this case, Choji was fighting just for the sake of fighting, while Umemiya has something to protect, so he is the strongest. It's a cool message that again, obviously connects to Sakura. He is someone who pretends to fight just to be strong, but it's obvious that inside him, he cares. So he has a lot of potential. He just needs to grow into a strong and vulnerable young man. When it comes to the rest of the fights in this mini arc that we saw, Suo's fight was alright. It was very quick but showing. Suo is a character that the entirety of the season remained very mysterious, so it makes sense we still don't see much of him. We just know that someone trained him really well, and I am sure and hope that we get the proper time to explore that backstory. The fight of Hiragi against Sako was the cheesiest moment in the season, and it's mainly because we barely get to see the backstory here. The fight lasted an episode and a half, and in that chunk we saw that Hiragi and Sako were friends in middle school. Hiragi chose a different high school to go to, and now Sako hates him for it. But we saw 2 scenes of this, literally, and then a very emotional song came on. So it felt a bit over dramatic, you know, it felt like the relationship wasn't as deep as it probably is. Now, Sakura against Togame was really great. This had a bit more time to develop, and we got to see and understand Togame's character and motivations very effectively. We got to see that Togame was not really this cruel guy who was also only interested in strong people, but it was more that Choji was his best friend and he saw his best friend turn into this tyrant obsessed with power, and in order to be there for his friend and remain to his side, hoping that Choji went back to being the best friend that he always remembered, he went along with the act that if you are not strong enough, you do not deserve a place in their group. But by the end of the fight with Sakura, he realizes that fighting was fun, and that fighting for your friends and fighting to a place to belong was fun. And so by the end of the season, Choji manages to go back to being the guy he used to be, and Togame can finally let go of the act and finally be himself again. So that was cute. I mean, this sounds cheesy, but the way that it was managed was not cheesy. It was really nice. I really like that. And my main issues with this anime, I blamed it on the pacing. The pace on certain battles was too fast and others developed more properly, and I understand this is because the first season only got 13 episodes. There were some things that they needed to show yes for future developments and focus more on more engaging parts of the story. The studio only had 13 episodes to hook a viewer enough to run the second season, and they got it! So I hope that we get a better pace and rhythm in season 2. But I will be definitely watching because I do see a lot of potential with this show once they finally get maybe 24 episodes per season and they get the time to have proper pacing. And now the last show that I will be talking about is another anime, and that is Kaijuu number 8. And I will start by saying that I am really into this show, and it is mainly because I really like the world building it did and its concept. Kaijus have been famous for decades, and just planting a reality where kaijus are a common nuisance to Japan to the point that the Japanese government has an entire department working about it, it's great. I'm not gonna lie, the premise of a human being able to turn into a kaiju and fighting other kaijus for the sake of the human race, it sounded a little bit like Attack on Titans to me. That was when I read the premise, and I think it's a normal reaction. But once I watch it, the tone and themes are incredibly different. Kaiju number 8 is indeed an entirely different show, and I'm happy about it. Kafka is a nice protagonist, but I just wish he had a bit more courage. I'm saying this because during the exam to enter the defense force, he wasn't really even trying to shoot kaijus. He was running around doing nothing until he had to turn into a kaiju. He was so serious about proving he could do it, but he really wasn't doing anything. Overall, I was very into Kaiju number 8, and I can see myself becoming a fan of the series. Just like with Windbreaker, Kaiju 8 only had 13 episodes, so it wasn't enough for me, but I will say that the pacing in Kaiju number 8 was really nice. And I really praise this because I feel like, again, only 13 episodes to present everything that's going on, and presenting enough to who a character can be difficult, but I feel like they did a great job here. But like I said, 13 episodes is not enough for me, so I'm still not too into it to start reading the manga. But I know the second season is scheduled for 2025, so let's see what has happened then, because I'll be watching too.